Hello everyone. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, then subscribe to this channel. Socrates, the dad of Western way of thinking. Socrates, an old-style Greek scholar, is in many cases viewed as the dad of Western way of thinking. Brought into the world around 470 BCE in Athens, Greece, Socrates' commitments to reasoning have impacted the advancement of Western idea. His way to deal with reasoning, described by basic addressing and exchange, laid the preparation for the scholarly practices that followed. In spite of not leaving any composed works, Socrates' thoughts and lessons were protected through the compositions of his understudies, especially Plato. This article investigates the life, reasoning, and tradition of Socrates, featuring his critical effect on way of thinking and his getting through impact on the world. Early life. Socrates was brought into the world in Athens to Sophroniscus, a stonemason, and Phanerete, a maternity specialist. Little is had some significant awareness of his initial life, however. It is accepted that he got fundamental training in writing, music, and tumbling, as was standard for youthful Athenian young men at that point. He probably emulated his dad's example as a stonemason prior to devoting himself to theory. Socrates lived during a time of critical political and social change in Athens, including the Peloponnesian conflict and the decay of Athenian majority-rules government. These occasions would shape his philosophical viewpoint and his perspectives on morals, legislative issues, and the job of the person in the public arena. Philosophical methodology. Socrates is most popular for his strategy for request, known as the Socratic technique, which includes posing a progression of inquiries to invigorate decisive reasoning and enlighten thoughts. This technique was planned to uncover inconsistencies and challenge suppositions, at last prompting a more profound comprehension of mind-boggling ideas. Socrates accepted that through exchange and addressing, people could accomplish more prominent mindfulness and moral knowledge. Dissimilar to the critics, who were contemporary instructors and thinkers known for their explanatory abilities, Socrates didn't really have information or astuteness. All things being equal, he considered himself to be a searcher of truth, ceaselessly addressing and looking at his own convictions and those of others. This obligation to scholarly lowliness and the quest for truth became integral to his way of thinking. Key philosophical thoughts. Socrates' way of thinking spun around a few key thoughts that lastingly affect Western idea. The unexamined life. One of Socrates' most popular assertions is, "The unexamined life does not merit living." This thought highlights his confidence in the significance of self-reflection and basic assessment of one's convictions, activities, and values. Socrates contended that genuine insight comes from remembering one's own obliviousness and endeavoring to carry on with a daily existence directed by reason and ideals. Ethicalness and information. Socrates accepted that ethicalness and information were interconnected, declaring that genuine information prompts prudent way of behaving. He contended that people who have information on what is great and in all likelihood will normally act as per that information. For Socrates, obliviousness was the foundation of moral downfalls, and the quest for information was fundamental for carrying on with an ethical life. The Socratic mystery. Socrates is frequently connected with the perplexing assertion, "I realize that I don't know anything." This conundrum mirrors his faith in the restrictions of human information and the significance of scholarly modesty. Socrates' acknowledgement of his own obliviousness spurred his steady quest for truth and his obligation to addressing laid-out convictions. Preliminary and demise. Socrates' obligation to addressing authority and testing cultural standards at last prompted his preliminary and execution. In 399 BCE, he was accused of irreverence and adulterating the young people of Athens. His informers contended that his lessons sabotaged conventional strict convictions and undermined the strength of the city-state. During his preliminary, as kept in Plato's expression of remorse, Socrates shielded his way of thinking and activities, contending that his quest for truth was a support of Athens and its residents. He kept up with that he was directed by a heavenly mission to look for insight and urge others to do likewise. Notwithstanding his safeguard, Socrates was viewed as blameworthy and condemned to death by drinking a cup of toxin hemlock. Socrates' demise denoted a defining moment throughout the entire existence of reasoning, cementing his heritage as a saint with the expectation of complementary idea and scholarly request. His readiness to pass on for his convictions has motivated incalculable rationalists, masterminds, and activists from the beginning of time. Impact and heritage. Socrates' impact on Western way of thinking couldn't possibly be more significant. His accentuation on decisive reasoning, self-assessment, and the quest for truth established the groundwork for ensuing philosophical practices, including crafted by his most well-known understudy, Plato. Impact on Plato. Plato, one of Socrates' given understudies, deified his instructor's thoughts through a progression of exchanges, a significant number of which component Socrates as the focal person. These discoursed, including the Republic, the conciliatory sentiment, and the discussion, catch Socrates' strategy for request and investigate a large number of philosophical subjects. Through Plato's works, Socrates' thoughts were safeguarded and scattered, impacting ages of thinkers. Effect on Aristotle and then some. Socrates' effect stretched out past Plato to Aristotle, another basic figure in Western way of thinking. While Aristotle fostered his own philosophical framework, he was impacted by Socratic standards, especially the accentuation on level-headed request and moral thinking. Socrates' thoughts likewise affected the advancement of aloofness, distrust, and other philosophical schools in the Greek period. Current impact. Socrates' heritage keeps on reverberating in contemporary way of thinking and schooling. The Socratic strategy stays a foundation of decisive reasoning and teaching method, utilized in study halls and lawful preparation to support logical thinking and discourse. His obligation to addressing and self-assessment has enlivened developments for scholarly opportunity and civil rights, accentuating the significance of testing authority and looking for truth. Socrates, the dad of Western way of thinking, made a permanent imprint on the world through his strategy for request, obligation to truth, and confidence in the force of decisive reasoning. His thoughts and lessons, protected through the works of his understudies, have formed the course of philosophical idea and keep on affecting the manner in which we ponder information, morals, and the idea of human life. Socrates' life and reasoning help us to remember the significance of addressing suppositions, embracing scholarly lowliness, and taking a stab at a more profound comprehension of ourselves and the world. His inheritance as a scholar who esteemed truth and reason regardless of anything else perseveres as a demonstration of the groundbreaking force of reasoning and the getting through journey for intelligence. Thank you for watching.